Welcome back. We're live on Channel 5 with Henry and Lizzie. And Henry, you said wow at that. You were amazed.
Yeah, the idea of
what part of it were you amazed? The fact that somebody actually tried to do it?
Yeah, I mean, like, why? What's the benefit? What's the point?
That would be my thinking. You've trained and trained for this one skill.
Yeah.
For what? Anyway, each to their own. It's a way of getting into the world records. OK, now I want your calls on this. Would you be happy to pay more council tax for better public services? 0207 862 2222 is the number to give us a ring. It's an ongoing debate as the election approaches. The Tories have accused Labour of wanting to raise taxes if they are elected, while Labour have not said that they will not raise income tax or VAT. Yesterday, the Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, failed to rule out council tax rises if Labour wins. But what do you think? Would you be willing to pay more tax if the money was put towards improving public services like schools or policing? Lizzie, happy to pay more tax?
No, I'm not happy to pay more tax. We're paying the highest since the Second World War. For 70 years, we've never paid this huge amount of tax. And people I know who have a bit of wealth that contribute greatly to this country and employ people are leaving. They are leaving this country. The tax has gone through the roof. And with Labour, particularly, they're doing it in a sly way. They're taxing with the private schoolings. And, you know...
No, they're being very upfront about that.
No, but it's so unfair. They're doing it in all different ways. And we're being taxed to death. And, you know, the tax in London, the council tax, gone up by 8.6%, Croydon by 15%. I mean... I want to know where my tax is going. I know I mentioned potholes earlier, but I can't tell you how many tyres I've done on the potholes where I live. As I said, 19 potholes I counted, and that makes me sound like a sad person to my local pub. It's unacceptable. I think we have a right to know.
Why are you driving to the pub?
Well, I was driving to the pub for a nice Sunday roast, actually.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is we have to look and know where this money is actually going. Because
more transparency?
I think more transparency is needed by our councils. Thank you very much.
Lizzie, you live in one of the richest countries in the world and actually one of the safest countries in the world. Every time you step out of your house...
The roads, you wouldn't think so.
The hospitals, the schools, the police... All of these things are paid for out of general taxation. That's where it goes. Now, people might not like paying tax, but go to countries where people don't pay tax, and it's absolute chaos. The poorest are not looked after, and people do not live safe, healthy lives. Have you seen this
country, Henry? We're on our knees. This country is on its knees.
We're not.
The infrastructure, the prisons.
It's relative.
Education,
Absolutely.
It is. The prisons are falling down. Yeah. Thanks to Tony Blair, who didn't want to look at them building the buildings.
What are you talking about? No. Between 1997 and 2010, huge amounts were put into health and education in particular. It's when austerity came in 2010 that things started going backwards. Now, the government at the time, you know, Cameron and Osborne said, well, we need to put the public services and everything on a financial even keel, or the economy on a financial even keel, even if public services pay the price. And that's what happened. Now, when you look at our...
If you look at former governments...
Lizzie, can I just say one thing?
Let me just finish this point.
Let me land for a second, please. OK, you talk about Labour. Who's been in government for the past 14 years, who's given us this highest tax burden for 80 years? It's the Conservatives claiming to be a low-tax party.
That's why I'm not voting Tory.
Let's let somebody else, perhaps, have a different goal.
That's why I'm not voting Tory. Okay. But there's a cigarette paper between Labour and Tories. Tories forgot to be Tories anymore. And Labour they're more Tories than the Tories.
Well, the people out there, but the thing is, Lizzie, at the moment, you're saying this, but the great British people out there have had a look at the current government and have made the decision, it would appear, that in a couple of weeks' time, they're going to wash them out with such force, there may only be about 100 or so Tories left in Parliament.
Keir Starmer,
they've had enough.
We've got the biggest tax ever since the Second World War.
Under the Conservatives.
And Keir Starmer, it's going to get worse. And with that, we're going to lose. All the wealth are going to leave this country, which they already are doing.
I'm going to go to the calls to see whether anyone is willing to pay more tax to better the services. Lynn from Glasgow, what's your thoughts on this? Happy to pay more council tax, let's say?
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, sorry. I would be happy to pay a little bit extra on my council tax as long as two things were done. A, the council is totally transparent about what they've actually spent the money on, so that you can see whether there's things that money's getting spent on that shouldn't be spent on. And B, as long as the money was ring-fenced for a specific thing, whether it be for a nursery or an old folks' place or
I've
a
got you,
hospital
Lynn.
as long
So
as it's ring-fenced.
if somebody came to your door and said, we're going to charge you £3 more a month on your council tax, but all of that money is going to go to social care, into social care, and we're going to raise this amount of money, and you're able to see that on their website quite clearly, what it's being spent on and where it's going, then you'd be quite comfortable in that. It's the not knowing, it's the feeling that it's wasted that makes you reluctant to pay more tax.
Yeah, I know. If somebody said for social care, definitely. I used to work in social care and I know how hard the job it is and how underpaid it is and under-resourced it is. So for that, yeah, definitely. But like you're saying, as long as it's transparent about what else the council is spending the money on, because you're hearing about so many councils that are spending money on like projects that never happen or expenses for this or
investments that go bad.
Lynn's so right. Lynn, you're totally right. That's exactly what I'm saying. We need transparency to know where our money is actually going. And I mean, near us, there was a big shopping mall thing that was going to be built. Hasn't still been done. Where is this money going with the councils? They have a responsibility, and we, as people who are paying our tax, need to know where the money is.
I do wonder whether a little bit more transparency, Henry, would actually solve a lot of issues in the sense that it could give you a bit more social responsibility. So if you see that the council is spending however many millions, 500,000, whatever, on litter picking, for example, you would be more inclined to pick up the litter yourself or make sure that you put it in the bin or give someone into trouble. So
or a guy in Newcastle who called us earlier, Jack, he said, they keep raising the council tax but expecting us to do something.
Well,
the council has a responsibility,
though. You'd be taking the responsibility on your own just because you can see where that money is going. Lynn, you might have a point with the transparency. I think a lot of people would be very happy with that.
But very quickly, when did anybody, Lynn including, or you, Lizzie, go onto your council website? Because a lot of the stuff is there, but most people don't look for it.
Sadly, when you try and get hold of your council,
just look on their website.
You can't get hold of them.
10% is for police, 7% are for education, adult social care.
Well, apparently a lot was supposed to be spent on the roads. Yet I've still got 19 potholes.
Lynn, thank you very much for your call. Martin from Oxfordshire, happy to pay more?
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
Hello.
What's your thoughts? Are you happy to pay more council tax if it means that the NHS is better in your area, the schools are better, social care is better, policing's better?
None of them. I think all them you've named should get more money. It's just that when I say about the council tax, that the charging enough as it is, because I'm in a one-bedroom flat and I'm being charged £2,100 a month, which I think is ridiculous for a one-bedroom flat.
Well, the other issue with the council tax is that the banding hasn't been changed for a very long time, and so there's lots of people maybe not paying their share and others paying a bit more than their share, Martin, and you might fall into the second category. If they sorted that out and maybe you were paying a bit less or a bit less of the share, would you be happy then?
I would be happy then, because going on what you were saying about the hospitals and everything else, they can all find money for emergencies and stuff, but they can't find money to pay the doctors and nurses, the police and everything else, which I find unbelievable.
Yeah, it's an interesting one that we're starting to get into the government rather than councils there.
Well, there's a very strong relationship, Storm, between the government and the council.
There is, but I wonder whether actually what Martin's getting at with his second comment is actually he doesn't want to pay more individually for his council tax. He wants the government to contribute more into the local councils and give the local councils more money to spend. Would that be fair?
That'd be about right, yeah.
But spend it with responsibility. Let us know. Let us be transparent where the money is going.
Well, Storm put her finger on something really, really important. The council tax bandings from A to H haven't changed since 1991 when Gorbachev was in the Kremlin and Chesney Hawkes was topping the charts. That's a very long time ago.
Yeah.
And house prices has changed, and maybe the bands should change, the ratings should change, and the amounts should change so that councils get more.
James from Liverpool, what's your thoughts on paying a little bit more in council tax?
Yes, Tom. I think you should pay for the services that you actually use or you benefit from.
Right, so if you don't have any children, you don't pay taxes for schools, or if you aren't old yet, you don't pay social.
Yeah, what about people that can't have kids? That's going to affect their mental health if they're paying for schooling. and they can't have kids.
What you're saying here is that you only pay for social care when you need it, but when you need social care, you're less likely to have a job and be paying tax. That's why we pay into the system, so that the money's there for when we need it. And maybe you don't have any kids, but maybe you're going to have to use social care, or maybe you're going to find yourself in a situation where you really need the police. Well, we always need the police. Or, you know, James, we all use things at different levels and different amounts, but that's why we just
I've been let down by the emergency services, Storm. With you saying the police and the emergency services, I nearly died because I had a hemorrhage, and they expected me to drive to the hospital because they said it was an 11-hour wait.
Oh,
now,
James.
Is that what we pay for?
Well, unfortunately,
that is unacceptable, and this is what I'm saying.
But the NHS is in crisis because of a lack of funding.
It's in a shambolic mess because the funding is going into the wrong places, Henry. It's all being mismanaged. It's true. You've got managers getting paid way more, 100k,
remove the managers,
actual nurses.
Remove the key managers,
it's a
and it'll be even worse.
mess, and you know it needs to reform.
It employs 1.3 or 1.4 million people. It needs to be managed.
It needs to be a total reform.
We reconfigure the NHS every 3 or 4 years in this country.
It's a shambolic, messy NHS, and just because, you know, it's called the NHS, it's a sacred cow. No, it's a service.
Imagine what would happen if it were removed.
What happened to James?
Okay, I mean, we weren't really talking about the NHS. We're talking about things like, because that's not necessarily councils, but we're talking about things like schools and social housing and those sorts of things. But I completely take your point, James, and actually I don't think you're alone in feeling like you're not getting your money's worth. I think that is generally how people feel at the moment when it comes to all the taxes they're paying, actually. But thank you very much for your call. I'm sorry to hear your story. Thank you to Henry and Lizzie for being such a wonderful panel. Thank you for all your calls too.